billion in affordable homes in all parts of the country, and this is going to enable us, as you say, to build up to 180,000 properties in the coming years, with a range of different types and tenures. So some will be available on what's called social rent, where you're getting a significant discount on the local market. Others will be an affordable rent, where it's still a sort of good discount, but it's less. And then some will be available people who want to get a foot on the ownership ladder through shared ownership, where they can buy a stake in the property and then staircase up it by more increments in years to come as their income allows. So a range of different opportunities for people to get good quality, secure accommodation.
What is the cost, would you say, of an affordable home typically?
Well, it varies obviously in which part of the country you're living in. The way we've set up this programme is that on the social rent properties, then they're going to be available to people at a discount to the local private rental sector of between 50 and 60%, so a very significant discount. For the affordable rent section, we're going to be offering people a discount of 20% to the local private rental sector, so still significant. And then, as I say, the shared ownership section, for the part that you own, then you're paying your mortgage on that. But for the part that you don't own, then you will be paying a rent which will be around 80% of the market.
In 2 miles, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Housing market, which varies enormously between very high demand places like London and places where property prices and rents are significantly lower elsewhere in the country.
As we're talking about the housing market, obviously this is going to help certain people. We've touched on the story of the problems of cladding in other places and deluged with calls from people. There's roughly 3 million people who are trapped in their homes, whether they are local authority owned or they own them, by this cladding. What are you doing about that?
Well, I've seen some of your programmes on this and heard some of your callers, and I have great empathy with people who are in this situation. There are very large numbers of people who've done the right thing, have purchased a property, it was their dream to do so, and then they found that they have a property which either has some unsafe cladding which needs to be removed, or it may not do, but they've struggled to sell the property because they don't have the form that's been created, or they're struggling to get hold of a form that's been created by the industry which will enable them to do so. We're working with the industry to resolve this. Is a complex and difficult challenge, but we're doing a number of things. Firstly, we've made available £1.6 billion to help to remove cladding on the most unsafe buildings. So we prioritised in the first instance the kind of cladding that was on Grenfell Tower, which is called ACM, and then more recently we've just created a second fund which is for other types of cladding which are perhaps less unsafe than ACM, but nonetheless need to come off buildings over 18 metres. And that fund is now available, and we're working through those applications, and we want to ensure that helps people to get the cladding off as quickly as possible.
You say over 18 metres, but you're aware of the changes that were brought in January, aren't you, Secretary of State?
Well, I brought them in, Nick.
So just remind the listeners what was you brought in?
Well, the expert advice is that 18 metres is an important determinator of risk, that the higher your building is, the more difficult it is to evacuate people. So in terms of regulation and in terms of any investment, in terms of any investment the government makes, prioritising above 18 metres is what the experts say. But obviously it's quite crude to simply say that risk begins at 18 metres. And so at the beginning of the year, taking the experts' advice, we amended our guidance to say that you also needed to take a more nuanced approach to risk and look at buildings individually. And so in addition to height, you should look at other factors and decide how safe a building is, taking into account a range of factors. And that means that buildings below 18 metres in some cases need to also think about their
Even though you can get out the window in the event of a fire, if you're on the ground floor.
Well, it depends, doesn't it? There's a range of factors.
You get out the window.
Well, it might depend on what the use. Well, it might depend on what the use of the building is. For example, so if you're a care home, then you might well have residents on the ground floor, but actually you need to take into account how the building is being used, as well as what materials have been used to construct it.
There are 3 million people effectively trapped in their homes, some of whom their home is worthless, zero. You've just talked about £11.5 billion to help with affordable homes. What are you doing about these individuals?
Well, we're doing a number of things. Firstly, we're bringing forward some government funding to help to accelerate the removal of cladding on the most dangerous roads.
What we've done?
Well, on ACM cladding, which is the most dangerous type of cladding, which was on the Grenfell Tower, around 70% of buildings that have that on them now have either had it removed or are in the process of removing it. That leaves far too many which have yet to have it fully removed, but the vast majority of those now have a plan to do so, and we have a team of people who are working with every one of those buildings, and I meet them regularly. I met the team yesterday and went through each of those buildings, and we're working with them to ensure that cladding comes off as quickly
This
as
is what I
possible.
don't understand. The government estimate is that it takes £3 billion to remove the cladding. You've pledged £1.6 billion, but you found 11.5 or £12 billion for this other scheme. Why aren't you looking after those other people who are in dangerous buildings? Why are you building new homes when there are dangerous ones you haven't addressed? It seems a very strange set of priorities. Define why you do that. You're leaving people in effectively fire traps, but you're building new homes. Now, talk to me about the logic of that, Secretary of State.
Well, I think it's extremely important to be investing in new social
I think it's extremely
affordable
important to
homes.
save
So I think you
people's
agree with that.
lives. I don't know about
We're
you,
also,
but I think it's quite important we don't have another Grenfell, don't you?
well, I do think that that's
Right,
why
so
we're
why are
working
we
extremely
spending
hard
£12
to
billion
alleviate
on
that.
building new homes when we've got dangerous ones still in existence? For the second time, explain the logic of that, if you would, Secretary of State.
Well, because this isn't just about government investment. We are investing a significant amount of money to help get the process going faster than it is today. But there's also other routes in which this is being funded. For example, with ACM, a great deal, which is the most dangerous type of cladding, a lot of these buildings have been funded through warranty claims, through the developers themselves.
The developers in many instances aren't paying. Why am I telling you
Well, they have paid, and
You're in
they
charge
actually
of
have.
housing, right?
Well, they
I'm
have
telling
actually
you.
paid in. No, you're wrong, actually, Nick. The developers have paid in a number of
But
cases.
in many of them not. You must be aware of that. In many they're refusing to. You've got recalcitrant and possibly rather dodgy lawyers who aren't helping these people out. You must be aware of this.
I am aware of that. That's precisely why, in the budget, the Chancellor and I announced a £1 billion fund to help with non-ACM planning, and that's now we've welcomed applications, that's been launched, and that work will now commence. But there's obviously a lot more that needs to be done here, because what we're looking at here is that we are a country that has neglected the issue of building safety for a very long time. We've had a building safety system which is not sufficiently strict. A number of buildings have been built without the right safety checks, and we now need to work through those progressively as quickly as possible, understand where the issues are, and make the changes. And we are putting some government funding in that. We're also changing the law so that there's much stricter regulation. We're bringing in a building safety regulator, and we're passing a piece of legislation which we've just published, which will be the biggest change in either of our lifetimes to building safety regulation. We've banned the most dangerous materials like the cladding on Grenfell Tower, and we're working very closely with the lenders as well to ensure that we can try to free up the very challenging issue we've got at the moment, which is blocking people from moving home.
Secretary, last thing on this subject, when was the last time you were in a building?
Well, I've visited a number. I mean, there are a number of buildings with cladding, or as there are tens of thousands of buildings.
When was
which
the
have
last
cladding.
time you visited one and spoke to some of the residents about their concerns?
I've spoken to constituents who came to my surgery just a couple of weeks
When
ago
was the
who
last
had
time
this
you went into a
situation.
building with cladding and spoke to the residents, whether residential, elderly people, young people, whatever? When was the last time you visited one and spoke to those people?
Or I went just before COVID to go and visit a number of residents in the Greenwich area. Their cladding, a type of cladding called HPL, is being removed. I met residents there.
They told you of their desperation.
Look, this is a very difficult situation. I've been working with them, I've been listening to them, I have correspondence from them all the time, and I want to do everything I can to help them. And we're trying to do that. We're doing that.
£12 million to build new homes, and nothing like enough to sort these people out.
In 300 yards, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
We're now working through the applications to refund, which we've had a lot of applications from across the country. And the purpose of that fund
Exit at junction 3.
because
quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the third exit onto the Parkway, A312.
On your radio, on Global Player, and leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, England's Deputy Chief Medical Officer is warning people have relaxed too much about coronavirus and that a rise in cases is of great concern. Professor Jonathan Van Tam says if the pandemic isn't taken very seriously again, the UK faces a bumpy ride over the next few months. The last 2 days have seen the highest number of new coronavirus cases recorded since May. Professor Stephen Reischer advises the government on behavioural science.
The government has got responsibility to support us and make workplaces and make places of leisure safe, and the public has got responsibility to abide by the restrictions. Because the one message you get from this pandemic, wherever you look in the world, is that if you're complacent and if you relax, it comes back and it bites.
Caerphilly will be the latest part of the UK to have lockdown rules tightened later following a significant rise in COVID cases. After 6 o'clock this evening, people are being told not to enter or leave the county borough area without a reasonable excuse. Indoor gatherings with people from other households will be banned and face coverings in shops will become mandatory. Liam O'Shaughnessy lives in Caerphilly and has told us it should act as a wake-up call.
It has to be said, I do hope at least this is like an eye-opener for some people to, when they leave the house, to wear correct PPE, socially distance, to look after.
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway.
Estimated between 5 and 10% of the money paid out through the furlough scheme was claimed wrongly or fraudulently. HMRC
Continue on the Parkway for 1 mile.
has been handed out wrongly by the government. It expects employers to check their claims and repay any excess amounts. The 8th round of talks between the UK and the European Union on a post-Brexit free trade deal is due to begin in London. Britain's chief negotiator, Lord Frost, says progress must be made this week in order to broker an agreement in time for the end of the transition period in December. A study has found at least 60,000 people with so-called long COVID have had symptoms of the illness for more than 3 months. Researchers at King's College London say some who've been previously fit and healthy now struggle to even climb stairs. And researchers say robots can have small but positive impacts on loneliness in older people. They've been tested in care homes in the UK. A study found that residents who used them for up to 18 hours across 2 weeks saw a significant improvement in their mental health. In the city, the FTSE 100's reopening at 59.37 after closing up 138 yesterday, and the pound buys $1.31 and €1.11. And the weather dry and mild for much of the UK with some bright spells, mostly in the south and east. Rain will move into northern areas later, and a high of 23 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Simon Conway.
How do we control coronavirus now? Here's Michael, a delivery driver.
All day, every day, I'm seeing people. Last thing I want to do is give anyone coronavirus. So the first sign of a cough, as soon as my temperature rises, any loss of taste or smell, I'm staying in, booking a test, only going out to get it done. I mean, you want to know straight away, right? That's how we protect each other.
To get a test, go to nhs.uk/coronavirus or call 119. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
5 minutes after 8 on Tuesday the 8th.
In a quarter of a mile, at Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit and stay on the Parkway, A312.
EU side of the negotiations will give you all the background on that as yes, Brexit in the balance, Brexit brinkmanship, whatever you want to call it. We come back to that, to the Manchester Arena inquiry, and it would appear that there were opportunities to stop that suicide bomber. We were at the inquiry, we'll give you a full report on that. Back to that conversation, the government find that around £12 billion pumped into building affordable homes, which is a good thing. Meanwhile, they are woefully short of looking after funding to remove dangerous cladding from certain buildings. Why does it make more sense, I would argue, to build those homes than to look after those who are caught in potential fire traps? And to events on the weekend, and the football commentator who finds himself in a load of trouble for comments such as these.
Tom Davis is about to be replaced already, and by somebody bigger than him. He's going to be exhausted before he comes on.
Now this This is the ITV commentator Clive Tilsley, apparently in trouble. Those two gentlemen to whom he referred are both, shall we say, rather on the heavyweight XXL side. Now you've got chunks. One of them saying, "Don't call."
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway.
Really that offensive?
Continue on A312 for 1.5 miles.